What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back for another Game of Thrones Season 8 plot leak video. Today I will be reading Season 8, Episode 3. To be honest with you, I don't even want to waste my breath on anything else, because this episode is so awesome, it's emergency awesome. Let's just get right into this undebunkable episode. Season 8, Episode 3 starts with a cold opening at the Carhold. They will show the castle and land completely destroyed. Everything is in ruins, with smoke rising from piles of rubble. Acres of land are soaked in blood, with pieces of clothes and uniforms and broken weapons everywhere. It will look like a typical battlefield. The only difference is, there are no bodies anywhere. The next scene is in Winterfell. It will be a long shot that pans around the outside of the castle, showing all the preparations being made for the Great War. Outside of the main wall, deep trenches were dug that makes it appear to be a moat. The Hound, Tormund, and a few others are carrying barrels of pitch to fill the trenches. When the battle begins, it will be caught on fire. It will basically enclose Winterfell in a ring of fire to prevent the dead from entering the castle. There are hundreds of archers on standby at the top of Winterfell's wall. There are barrels lined up every 10 feet. They are being filled with arrows that have tips made of dragon glass. Down in the yard, stacks and stacks of spears are being piled up. All of them have dragon glass tips as well. Grey Worm is in the yard, and his spear looks slightly different than the rest. His was made out of the red dragon glass. Gendry made himself a new hammer. The head has several spikes, all made of different color dragon glass, black, red, and green. Jon, Sansa, Arya, and Ghost are walking around the courtyard overlooking all of the work and preparations being made. Arya tells them about her run-in with Nymeria in her pack. She says she wanted Nymeria to come home with her, but deep down she knew she was meant to be in the wild, but she does hope to see her again. Jon looks at Ghost, and he almost appears sad now that Ghost is the only direwolf in Winterfell. Jon tells Arya they were meant to have these wolves. As long as they are alive, they will always have a connection. He also says, even when him and Ghost are apart, he always has a sense that he is near. And Arya says, I know exactly what you mean. As Jon, Sansa, and Arya are walking around the courtyard, a few of the guards begin to yell down to them. They tell Jon that a rider is approaching the gate. Beric Dondarrion has arrived at Winterfell. He looks like he's about to collapse, but Jon tells the men to open the gate and allow him inside. When Arya recognizes him, she pulls out her dagger. She tells him he has come to the wrong place. Jon seems confused. Arya says he is the man that sold Gendry to the Red Witch. She swore she would kill him if she ever saw him again. Beric says, kill me if you must, but I am here to play my part. Jon, the Night King and the army of the dead will be here tonight. Euron and the Golden Company arrive at King's Landing. Cersei, Qyburn, and the Mountain are outside waiting for them to unload. Euron greets Cersei by grabbing her by the hand and giving it a kiss. He says, I have completed every task you have set upon me. I have traveled the seas and conquered your enemies. Now I have brought you a brand new army. Cersei says, you haven't defeated all of my enemies, but perhaps you should be rewarded. The commander of the Golden Company tells Cersei it feels good to be in Westeros. Cersei says, don't get too comfortable, we have a war to win. The commander wishes to speak with whoever commands her troops. Cersei says she is in the process of finding someone she can trust to command her Lannister men. Her former commander, Jaime, has left the city. He went to go join his traitor brother, that bastard in the north who dares to call himself king, and that foreign bitch with the dragons. She says, it doesn't matter now, I have everything I need right here. Euron has the biggest smile on his face, although Cersei wasn't just talking about him. Cersei notices the commander of the Golden Company got tense when she mentioned the dragons. Cersei says, what's wrong? Are you afraid of dragons? The commander says, I wasn't sure if they were real. I have only heard about them, but I have always wanted to see one. Cersei says, don't worry, you will see them, and you will help me kill them. All of them, along with my traitor brothers, the bastard Jon Snow, and that wretched whore, Daenerys Targaryen. Euron wishes to speak with Cersei, alone. He looks at the mountain while saying this. Cersei says, as you wish, follow us to the Red Keep. In the next scene, Theon and his small group of Ironborn men land back on Dragonstone. Now that everyone went north, the island is pretty much abandoned. Theon brought his men here to feed them and make sure they find enough weapons to arm themselves. He now knows he will need to board the Silence in order to get Yara back. When night falls, they plan on heading to King's Landing in hopes of getting her back without everyone in the city being alerted while he is trying to locate her. Back in Winterfell, Bran, Sam, Tyrion, and the Maester enter the Godswood. Tyrion says there must be something or someone connected to all of the legends. The book about the Long Night talks of Azor Ahai, and Melisandre talks about there being a prince that was promised, and Bran says Old Nan used to tell him stories about the last hero. All of these legends are said to have faced the darkness and won. Sam says, Bran, we need you to see if there is anything else you can tell us about this man. Who was he? How did he end the Long Night? Bran takes a deep breath, and his eyes roll back into his head. Bran is about to see another series of visions, some past, some present, and some of the future. The first thing he sees is a black silhouette standing on a battlefield. He is holding a red sword. It's just like his previous vision, but this time, the black silhouette is standing face to face with the Night King. Then he sees the same battlefield, but this time no one is there. The snow is gone. Bran is walking. He sees a man face down in the water, with red rubies all around him. Then he sees a crowd of people cheering. There is a man mounted on a horse. The man leans down and hands something to a woman, and the crowd goes eerily silent. Then Bran is at the wall, and there is a pool of blood in the snow. When Bran looks into the blood, he can see blue rose petals scattered throughout it, soaking up the blood. Bran is then back at the Tower of Joy, but this time Lyanna is sitting up on the bed. Bran can hear the man say, "He will be the Song of Ice and Fire." Bran can see a woman dressed in red, with hair as red as the bleeding star. It looks like she is talking to someone, but he can't quite make out who the person is. It sounds like Jon's voice, but all he can see is a black silhouette, with steam rising from his sword. Then Bran is back on the battlefield, covered in snow. Bran can see the man that looks like a black silhouette, holding a red sword clenched in his fist. The man is face to face with the Night King. The Night King steps forward, and the Black Shadow swings his sword as fast as lightning strikes. But Bran comes out of his vision before he can see what happens. When Bran opens his eyes, he is completely covered in sweat. He was gripping his chair so hard, his hands are sore and red. Tyrion, Sam, and the Maester are looking at him anxiously, awaiting to hear what he has seen. Tyrion says, "Are the legends true?" Sam says, "Do you know what we need to do to defeat the Night King?" Bran says yes. Now it all makes sense. I was wondering why the three-eyed raven showed me the tower, but now I know. Bran then looks at the Maester and says, "Take me to Jon." As Bran is being pushed across the courtyard, he spots Jon, Daenerys, and several other main characters. When Jon sees Bran coming across the yard, he can tell something is wrong. Jon walks over to meet Bran halfway. Several people have crowded around to see what's going on. Bran says, "Jon, it's time we talk. We need to talk alone." Jon says we can go down into the crypts. As they begin to head that way, men shout down from atop the walls. They tell Jon more riders are approaching the gate. This time, there are hundreds. Before Jon can even ask who it is, men begin to pick up their weapons and draw back their bows. He can hear people shouting. Every other word is a curse, along with the name Kingslayer. Jaime Lannister and Bronn have arrived, and there are men wearing Frey uniforms. Jaime managed to round up a few hundred soldiers that were still scattered around the twins. Tyrion can't believe Jaime has rode to Winterfell, but he takes note that he isn't wearing the Lannister colors, nor does he have any Lannister men with him. Something must be wrong. Jaime and Bronn are greeted with zero courtesy. Sansa demands to know what the hell is going on, and why Jaime is here, with men displaying the Frey's sigil. Men from above begin to scream, "Kingslayer, the North remembers. You made a mistake coming here." Jon attempts to quiet the shouts. He asks Jaime where the rest of the men are, the ones that Cersei promised to provide. Before Jaime can answer, Sansa notices the sword Jaime has. She says it was Joffrey's wedding gift from Tywin. She says, "Jon, that is father's sword. It was made from ice." Brienne begins to panic, so she steps in between them. She says, "Lady Sansa, Jaime is no longer the man he once was. He saved my life. He also sent me to save yours. He gave me this sword to protect you." He told me to use Ned Stark's sword to protect Ned Stark's daughter. Jaime interrupts and says, I have come here to help. Then Jaime pulls out Widow's Wail, and 100 swords of the North are pulled on Jaime. Someone shouts, Go ahead, Kingslayer. Give me a reason to kill you where you stand. Jaime says, You can have the sword, but I was hoping I could use one to help you defeat the dead. I know the Lannisters are no friends of the Starks. I know I have done things that I wish I could change, but I can't. All I can do now is be a man of my word, and I remember promising to help you in this war. Cersei is not coming, so I left her. Euron lied. He wasn't going back to the Iron Islands. Right now he is picking up 20,000 men from the Golden Company. Cersei plans to use them to defeat whoever survives in the North, including me now. When Daenerys hears Cersei lied, she gives Tyrion a venomous look. Varys puts his head down and he walks away. Jon looks at Jaime and says, I don't like you, sir, but I believe what you have said. He motions to Jaime and Bronn and tells them to come inside, but he tells all of their men to wait outside of the gate. They are not to enter the castle until everything is sorted out. In the next scene, Euron, Cersei, and the Mountain enter the chambers to talk in private. Euron wants the Mountain to step outside, but Cersei tells him not to worry, he won't tell anyone. Euron begins pressing the issue of getting what he feels is owed to him, which is Cersei. He tells her how he is a better man than Jaime, and how he won't be coming back now unless his head is on a spike. Cersei continues to play hard to get, but eventually Euron starts to get her to soften up. Some. Cersei knows what Euron wants, but she tells him she is pregnant with Jaime's child inside of her. Euron doesn't really care if she's pregnant. He says all he's ever wanted was to marry the most beautiful woman in the world. He is the king and he deserves to have a queen at his side. He says they should rule Westeros together. He will never betray her or abandon her in a time of need like Jaime did. They will conquer all of their enemies together. Cersei enjoys the attention he is giving her, but she isn't ready to hand over the keys to the kingdom. But she does reassure him that in due time, he will get everything he needs. Cersei then motions for the Mountain to step outside. Cersei closes the door behind him. Then she takes Euron by the hand and walks him over to the bed. Back at Winterfell, everyone is gathered in the main hall. Lord Glover and Yohn Royce are the loudest voices in the room. They are outraged at the sight of the Kingslayer. They warn Jon that if they allow this man to make camp in the North, he will slit their throats while they sleep. You cannot trust a Lannister. Brienne and Tyrion both try to subdue the tension in the room by explaining how they need the help, and how Jaime wouldn't have dared come here in the midst of war, under ill intentions. Lord Glover threatens to take the Knights of the Vale home. He will not have his men fighting alongside Sir Jaime Lannister. This causes other men to begin to stand up and say they are marching home as well. They will wait out the storm in their own lands. That's until Jon slams his fist into the table and says, Enough! Jon says, I told everyone I would not force them to stay and fight, but if you leave and run home and decide to face the dead alone, you will die. The only way we have a chance of surviving is by staying together. That is the only way. Jon says, I have no love for the Lannisters. They are responsible for murdering my father, my brother, and Lady Stark. I want him here no more than any of you, but we need men. I have came face to face with the Night King. You do not know what he is capable of. You haven't seen the army of the dead, but soon enough, you will. And you're going to wish you had every living soul fighting at your side, no matter your differences or past conflicts. Jon says, my own men murdered me for allowing the wildlings through the wall, but I would do it again if I knew it could help save the realm. This revelation stuns almost everyone in attendance. Jaime apologizes to Jon for what has happened to him and his family, and he swears he had nothing to do with the Red Wedding or Ned Stark's death. Jaime wishes to speak with Varys because Varys was there when Joffrey ordered Ned Stark's execution. It was Joffrey's decision alone. To their disbelief, Varys is not in the room. No one has seen him since he walked away from the main gate when Jaime arrived and said Cersei wasn't sending men. As everyone in the hall is still trying to grasp the situation at hand, in comes Bran Stark. Jaime begins to shift his stance, and his right arm begins to tremble. Bran is being pushed into the hall by his sister, Arya Stark. She pushes Bran next to Jon and Sansa. Then Arya looks up at Jaime, and she says, "What's wrong?" It looks like you have just seen a ghost." Jaime doesn't say anything, but his arm is still trembling. Arya says, "You might not remember me, Kingslayer, but I remember you. I remember your friend, Bronn, also. You were both at the Twins, celebrating with Walder Frey, after you had my uncle the Blackfish murdered." Arya then pulls something from her bag. She puts on the face of the serving girl and says, "Remember me?" Jaime's eyes begin to fill up with water. Several men stand up and walk up behind Jaime and Bronn with their swords drawn. Arya pulls out her dagger. She begins to spin it around in her hand. The tension in the room is reaching a boiling point. Arya says, "Sir Jaime, is there anything else you have done to my family that we should know about?" Jaime doesn't say a word, but he looks at Bran, and he sees that Bran was already looking at him. Jaime can feel Bran's eyes peering deep into his soul, deep into his past. Jaime is still silent, struggling to find the right words to say. But then, Bran finally says something. Bran says, "I know." Tyrion is beginning to feel just as many eyes on him as his brother Jaime. Men are beginning to mutter curses, and he can hear Imp just as much as Kingslayer. Tyrion realizes he is just as likely to die alongside Jaime. Lord Glover stands up. He tells Bran to tell everyone what he knows. He says, "What have you seen, Bran? What have you heard about the Kingslayer?" Bran's eyes never leave Jaime. Sansa stands up and demands someone to speak. Jaime looks at Sansa. He is on the verge of a breakdown. Jaime says, "No need, my lady. I will tell you everything." Jaime walks into the center of the room. He is ready to admit his guilt of all his past crimes. Jaime looks at all the Stark children and begins by saying, "I am truly sorry. I do not expect anyone to forgive me for what I am about to say." Tyrion looks at Bran. He seems certain he knows what is coming next. Deep down, he always knew it was true. And deep down, he always knew he could die for the crimes done by his family. As Jaime begins to continue with his confessions, the sound of a horn sends shivers down everyone's spine. The sound was so loud, it could probably wake the dead. Winterfell's hall erupts in chaos. Everyone's worst fear has just become a reality. The army of the dead has arrived. Jon immediately orders everyone who is not willing to fight to get underground and flee. Jon had prepared for this, so he had the secret passages mapped out for an escape route. Then, he tells Tormund and the Hound to light the pitch in the trenches. Jon hands Jaime Widow's Wail. He says, "If you have any shred of honor left, come prove it and fight with me." When they get outside, they enter a complete whiteout. Visibility is no more than a few feet in front of their faces. Jon tells Daenerys to get underground. He doesn't want her at risk now that she is pregnant, but Daenerys refuses to not see this fight through. She tells Jon if she doesn't help, none of them will survive anyway. She will not let Viserion's death happen without delivering her own justice to the Night King. Jon has no option but to let her fight. He knows how badly her dragons are needed now. Daenerys mounts Drogon and takes to the sky, but she can't see a thing, nor can she hear Viserion. Jon gets to the top of the main wall. He looks out into the storm, hoping to get a glimpse of the army of the dead. For a few moments, he can't see more than 5 feet in front of him, but then, he starts to see the faint glow of blue eyes off into the distance. He can't see their bodies, but he can see tens of thousands of blue dots all around the castle. Most of the forces were camped outside of the walls, so Jon hopes they can brace themselves before their camp is overrun. The snow is so deep, the Dothraki won't be able to mount their horses. Bran attempts to warg into the Ravens in order to send them out into the storm to see where exactly the Night King is, but the birds won't take flight. Either the Night King is too close and powerful, or the storm is too severe, but Bran can't warg into the Ravens. Then, the screams of thousands of dying men pierce through the storm like a crack of thunder. The battle has begun. The Great War is here. Jon Snow, the Hound, Jaime Lannister, Tormund, Grey Worm, Jorah Mormont, Arya, Gendry, and several others exit the main gate and head out into the storm. The rest of the pitch in the trenches is ignited. Winterfell is now enclosed in a ring of fire. No one goes in and no one goes out. Their destiny now lies ahead of them as they enter the battle. The faint glow of red and orange can be seen through the storm. Drogon and Rhaegal have found their targets. The Night King seems to have sent his army forward first, before he decides to face 2 dragons with 1. It is revealed that he has dozens of White Walkers equipped with ice spears, along with his giants that have 10-foot spears. At some point during the battle, Grey Worm will be slain by a White Walker. He was able to kill one with his Dragonglass spear, but due to the limited visibility, he wasn't able to see the others closing in on him. Nearly all of the Unsullied are killed in the first wave of the attack, along with thousands of Dothraki men. Brienne of Tarth's leg is badly wounded during the battle. Tormund and Jorah try dragging her back to the castle wall, but they will come under attack during the process, and Tormund will be killed. Jaime and Jon are both injured during the battle also. Arya ends up surrounded by several Whites. She is able to kill many of them, but if it wasn't for Jaime and Jon shielding her, she may have fallen as well. Daenerys is able to destroy hundreds, if not thousands of Whites with Drogon and Rhaegal, but the storm is so bad it's nearly impossible to see where all of them are coming from. With the amount of injuries, they start to fall back to the castle. They are hoping Daenerys can take out most of them while they get the injured to safety. Meanwhile, on the other side of the castle, 2 giants are carrying a huge boulder to throw down into the flaming moat. Once the rock is in place, it will give them something to climb over so they can reach the castle and allow the whole army to start scaling the walls or break a gate. Then, the Night King enters the battle. Viserion's scream sounds much louder than Drogon's or Rhaegal's now. Daenerys attempts to have both dragons land by the gate, so they can put all of the injured on the dragons and fly them into the courtyard so they can get underground. When she lands Drogon, Rhaegal gets hit by an ice spear and it rips right through his wing, causing him to fly off erratically. As everyone boards Drogon, the sound of Viserion's scream is getting closer, and his blue flame seems to be getting brighter through the fog. Daenerys realizes she doesn't have much time to react, and she has too many people on Drogon to try and engage the Night King now. Instead of dropping them off inside the courtyard, where the Night King would surely find them, she takes off and leaves the castle. As they are flying away, hundreds of Whites are climbing over the rock in the moat. They will be climbing the castle walls in moments. The Night King appears through the storm, and the first thing he does is torch the Godswood. The heart tree that has stood for generations and generations is now up in flames. Alright folks, that is actually the end of episode 3, so it looks like some of the battle is going to pick back up in episode 4 after everybody is able to escape from Winterfell. So it should be interesting to see how things kind of end. Let me know what you think about this so far. Put all your comments, questions, and stuff like that down below in the comment section. I want to thank everybody for stopping by and watching this video, and I also want to thank everyone on Patreon who supports this channel. This video is already running pretty long, so I just want to end it right here. But thank you all. I hope you have a great day. I will see you soon with episode 4. Bye.